Borough of Bath. It is your Borough Manager, Brad Flynn. In today's video, we're going to talk about the right to know law. If you're a Bath local and on social media recently, this is pretty much a hot button topic, so I figured I'd cover it. We're going to talk about the right to know law, and we're going to start an intro about what the right to know law is and how it affects you as the public. So let's dive right into it. All right, the right to know law, let's get some acronyms out of the way. Okay, so we've got right to know law. It's RTKL. You'll see that, RTKL. The Office of Open Records is the state agency that's responsible for the administration of the right to know law. And that's the acronym of OOR, Office of Open Records. And then finally, we have right to know requests, RTKR. That's the actual form you submit to an agency in order to see certain information or to get documents from the agency. And when we talk about covered agency, what we mean is like the Borough of Bath. The Borough of Bath is a covered agency under the right to know law. So let's continue on. So what does the right to know law do for everybody in the public? So the right to know law does the following. It determines the existence of a public record, and we'll get into what a public record and a record is. So it determines whether the existence of a public record with an agency, which is proven through documentation submitted by the agency as to whether that record exists or it doesn't. It does determine if an agency's justification for denying access to a public record is also authorized. And there are many different nuances to the law in which an agency can deny public access to a document. And so we'll go through some of that as well. So we know what the right to know law will do. What does it not do? So the right to know law is not to be used to ask questions or to get answers from an agency relative to a question, especially if it's an unrelated matter that has nothing to do with the agency. So you can't use a right to know form or right to know request form to ask an agency a question. The right to know law does not conduct investigations into municipal operations. That's not the job of the right to know law, and it's not the job of the Office of Open Records down at Harrisburg. The right to know law and OOR, they do not care about the quality or the accuracy of a record that is up for determination as to whether it should be released or not. They don't care about that. That's not the job of the Office of Open Records, so you can't use the right to know law or a right to know request form to check the validity of a document that was submitted. So what is a public record? It's records, including any kind of financial record, that is not exempt under the right to know law. So there are many different exemptions under the right to know law, 30 plus exemptions. It's not exempt under federal or state law. For instance, copyright law. If an engineer has submitted a traffic report or has submitted a report relevant to land development for the borough to review, the information that report contains could be copyrighted information, or it can be restricted access because that's the engineer's work. That's their original works, and it's not subject to be disclosed to anybody else in the public unless the engineering firm authorizes the disclosure of that kind of information. So we have to be careful about what we do release, because we do have some things here at the borough that may be copyrighted, so it might be covered under federal law. That might be covered under another state law in which we couldn't release that over to you. And so finally, it's not protected by a privilege. So if the record's protected by privilege, then we can't release that either to the public if you were to ask for it. And so what do we mean by a privilege? Well, the biggest one is what's called the attorney-client privilege, right? So if you speak to an attorney, anything you say to that attorney in the course of that attorney doing work for you, that is privileged information. So you can't share mental impressions of what the lawyer's thinking in your case. You wouldn't want that information to be released to the public, because then you would not have an advantage to whatever it is that the case that you're dealing with. You're basically getting the playbook. And so that you wouldn't do that ordinarily in a criminal case or a civil case, in any other case, really. And so the agency has the same type of protections when you have attorney-client privilege. So if there's emails passed between a borough official and their attorney, and it's discussing any kind of mental impression or giving legal advice relative to an issue that the borough may be dealing with, well, then that is off limits. That can't be released to the public. Where the attorney-client privilege would not come into play is a situation where, let's say there's an email between myself and the borough solicitor, and I tell him that there's a meeting, public meeting on Monday the 18th, and we'd like you there. It starts at 6 p.m. That is purely factual. That is not protected under the attorney-client privilege, and therefore that is a record that you could submit for, and you could review it and see it, and we could print it out for you. No big deal. That's how that works. Okay, so what's a record? Well, regardless of form or medium is what we say. So whether it's a text message, whether it's paper form, whether it's digital, whether it's it could be any one of these different mediums that the information could be in. So it doesn't matter what the record form is in. Now, I think there's a misconception too that the Borough of Bath is completely digital. That's false. The Borough of Bath is partially digital. We do store some digital files. We have a server, but a lot of what we do is still in paper format. So we have records upon records upon records. It could be bankers boxes and bankers boxes that go almost 10 feet high in the back file storage area. And that wall is almost 30, 40, 50 feet in length. So there's a lot of different records that we do hold over time. Now, the records that we do have, they will be destroyed over time in accordance with the records retention manual. Okay, so the record that we're looking for, it documents agency transaction, it documents an agency's activity, it documents a business activity of the particular agency. And the agency either creates it, receives it, or retains it in some way in accordance with state law. So just one thing to keep in mind here, the right to know law does not mean that the borough or an agency has to create a record for you just because you're asking for it. It has to already exist, and that's the primary point behind the right to know.
Let's talk about a public record. In particular, the minute book. So the minute book for the Borough of Bath Council. So they have a public meeting and all of their agency business, their transactions, anything that they record and motion on, it's right here in a minute book. And so this book is here at the Borough Records or Borough Hall, and you can ask for copies of meeting minutes that have been approved by Borough Council, and that's the key. Borough Council has to approve the meeting minutes in order for it to become a public record that's subject to the right to know law. Anything in draft form cannot be turned over to the public until council's had a chance to approve that document. So you really don't need to do a right to know request on information like this because A, it's here in the borough office and we just show it to you. B, a lot of this is online. So you can just look online, go to the borough website at bathborough.org. You can check out meeting minutes on the website. Pre-deliberation notes or documents that went into making the decision, that's not subject to the right to know law, and we can't turn that over to you. So just another little tidbit of information that a lot of people don't realize. So I hope that helps.
So the right to know law, there's a big assumption here. The presumption. There's a presumption that the right to know law is going to be used responsibly by a requester, and that it's also being used responsibly by an agency. The big thing to remember here, and I've said this before, there is a cost to transparency. There's a cost to all of the public resources that are used in the receiving, processing, and retrieving and copying of records being asked for. So this is where it's very important. A requester needs to do their homework before they submit a right to know request. Think hard about being really specific. I want to see receipt X that was spent on day Y, and it involves this subject. Easy enough. I can, the agency here, or I can easily identify the record that you're looking for, and boom, we can produce it. And honestly, if it's that easy, if it's something that, it's so painfully obvious that we know what you're looking for, I don't even think you need a right to know request for that. I would say that on the caveat that no protected information on potentially the document that it is that we think is so painfully obvious. If it's got somebody's personal information on there, you as the public, you don't want your phone numbers, your personal addresses. You don't want a voucher that is in your name that may have your social security number on it or your phone number on it, and let's say your bank account information. Agencies shouldn't be just giving that information up. So that's important. But you need to do your homework, right? And you need to be really specific about what it is that you're asking for so that we know what you're asking for, and it can make it pretty seamless. And in a lot of cases, there might be a situation where we can just give you the document. We don't need a right to know request. But the real point here is to stress, do your homework before you submit that right to know request because of the costs and the public resources that are involved in processing your request. So, the right to know law is not a game at all. So it needs to be taken seriously by the requester, and it's also taken very seriously by the agency. It's taken very seriously by the state. There's a whole process here, and a lot of it's quasi judicial, and there's a legal proceedings that follow, and there's a lot of work that goes into all this. So you need to ensure that you're not just using it as a game. You're trying to poke fun. You're just going to make public officials run around and find this document and do this. And I want 10 years of this. And you need to be sensible about what it is that you're asking for. Okay, so finally, if you need more information on the right to know law, the Borough webpage has been revamped, and you can find more information here at https://bathborough.org, right to know. And you can always give us a call, 610-837-6525. You can shoot me an email, manager@borough@bath.org. So I hope this video has been helpful as far as an intro into the right to know law. There's going to be some more videos to come regarding this issue, so I can help to educate and let you know a little bit more about how in-depth the law is, and maybe set you up so that you can just come talk to us, and if you need to see something on the property file, we can just show you. You don't even need to submit a right to know request, potentially. So if you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you on the next one. Take care. Have a great day, Bath PA, and anyone else who's watching. Take care. Bye-bye.